I always feel like I need to do a disclaimer whenever I do these kinds of videos because I can foresee the comments that I'm going to get. But here we are, I say it how it is. These are the things that Italians do that blow my mind. Now, of course, it goes without saying, these have been my own personal observations. They are not necessarily representative of every single Italian person. Some of them can be very stereotypical, but they have been my experiences. So there are always going to be exceptions to the rule. A lot of what I observe is based on my time living here in South Italy. So again, that is another thing that you need to consider. But nevertheless, these are 5 things that I can't really understand. The first is the long goodbye. Now, I come from London, and in London, when we say goodbye, we are putting our coat on and we're about to head out of the door. But here in Italy, I like to consider a goodbye as being like a 3-course meal. You have the starter. This is when you first express a desire to go, okay, shall we go then? But don't go putting your coat on yet, because that's just the initial intention. Nobody really starts moving when you first say that it's time to go. Then the conversation generally continues on for maybe up to 5 more minutes. And then again, you express a second desire. So this is like the kind of main meal. Okay, let's really go. And this time the coat goes on and you're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm about to go out of the door. But no, hold your horses. This is just the main course. Then follows more conversation to the point when you arrive at dessert, which is finally the moment when you leave. It really is like this. Goodbyes in Italy, especially if you're with friends or family, almost last as long as the initial interaction. And this is something that I've never been able to understand, because really we are quite prompt in the UK. When it's time to go, we're like, okay, let's go. It might take us a while to arrive at the point to say that we want to go, but the minute we've said we're going, we're off. We don't kind of delay the process. But here, this is the situation. So it's something that I've experienced many a time. We've been in like a group situation and we're like, okay, let's go. And I'm like with the coat ready to go and the conversation is still continuing. And I'm kind of looking around going, but hold on a second, weren't we supposed to be leaving? So this is something that I don't think I'm ever going to get used to, because for me, when I've got something to do, I've got something to do. When I've got to go, I've got to go. Like, it's not about dragging something out for a really long time. Even if I've had a really great experience, the minute I've decided I'm leaving, I'm going. And I think this is definitely my own personal character, the way that I've been brought up in my culture. But yeah, this is something that blows my mind a little bit, how long goodbyes can really be here in Italy. The second thing that blows my mind is this whole pazienza concept. Now, don't get me wrong, pazienza, which essentially means like patience, I do believe that it is an essential part of life, and I can see so much goodness in this philosophy. And indeed, there are many things that you do have to wait a long time for in order to achieve what it is that you want. Not everything is immediately bestowed upon you. However, pazienza, as I've mentioned in a lot of other videos, is often used in a very passive way. When there is a problem that people cannot find a solution to, or they don't want to find a solution to, we often hear this term bandied about, pazienza. I'm not really a pazienza kind of girl. I don't know if you've really figured that out by now, if you're a regular viewer of my channel. I am incredibly impatient. I've always had this kind of character, but I am learning that you do need to be patient in particular areas of your life, particularly if you have like long-term goals and focus. Not everything happens immediately. Like, my language learning is evidence of that. Things take time and there are processes that you have to follow, which mean that you do need a degree of pazienza to be able to kind of go through the motions, if you like. But I'm not passive, and I really don't like it when people almost use this as an excuse for not having done the things that they want to do. Pazienza, like the word alone is going to change the world. Sadly, it isn't, even though it is an incredible word and there is a lot of goodness contained within patience. Patience alone is not going to change anything. There are some things in life that you actually have to take physical action, and there are some things that you actually need to do in your life if you want to see a difference. And that's why this kind of concept blows my mind. I hear it so much here in South Italy. I hear it in family discussions. I hear it in group conversations. When people are stressed about something, when there's a lot of negativity happening, people use this term almost as like a comforter or soother, but I'm perhaps a bit more pragmatic, and I'm like, we need to start doing things. Let's take action. Why don't you do X, Y, and Z, rather than just sitting there going, pacienza. Because if you listen to this podcast episode up here, which turns out to be this week's episode, as I say in that podcast episode, we are always choosing in life. Everything in life is a choice. And so to sit and say pacienza is a choice as much as deciding to take action and try to improve your life is as well. And so this is why I can't really wrap my head around this concept. And as much as I see the beauty of it in so many different ways, I also see how people kind of maybe overuse this term to the point of justifying inaction in their lives. And that's the use of this word that kind of I can't really understand. Okay, the third thing that blows my mind in Italy is how, and this is in Palermo, I don't know how it is in other parts of Italy, please comment below and tell me your experiences, but how people give money when they park their cars. Let me explain, because of course you do have to pay for parking here. It's not free, but I'm talking about the people who are standing on the road. They don't have a job. Their job is to take money from you because you've parked on a public street. That is what I'm talking about. And there are many Italian people that won't give any money, because why should you? It's a public road. These people are not employed by the council. They are there just to try to make some money, and they want money just because they are standing on the road, or at very best they have waved their arms to tell you where to park. I don't agree with this. And again, I think this is my cold British character coming out, but I'm sorry, this is a public road. Most of us here pay our taxes. Why am I having to pay to park on a road? And then also I'm going to have to buy a ticket as well. But then I'm also having to pay this person who's just pointed to a space on the road for the privilege of showing me where to park. I don't really get it. But you know what? Here in Palermo, you will find particular neighbourhoods where you see the same people again and again, that you actually start to think it is a paid job by the council, but it isn't. And this is something that I don't understand, because I think there is a sense of fear sometimes. People give these people money because they're afraid that their car will get damaged otherwise. I see how they approach tourists, especially people who don't know the area very well. And maybe these people think that if they give them money, their car will be protected whilst they're away. It's not true. These people cover large areas. They don't just stand by your car all night. But it's something I don't agree with. Like, I'm a hard worker. Like, I was working from when I was like 16. The minute I was able to have a national insurance number in the UK, I had my first part-time job. I have consistently been working my entire life. And, I just don't agree with giving money to people who they're not really working. It's like, for me, that is not a job. And I realize that maybe I might be offensive in what I say, but I just think, to point to a space in the road and then expect me to pay you, what have you done? I could have seen that space with my own eyes. I'm not talking about private parking, I'm talking about public streets. And so I don't understand why people continue to give these people money. I think sometimes there is this belief that the money is going to help the family. Maybe they don't have a lot of money and they need money for food. I think this is definitely my police mind. I'm very cynical because, I was a police officer for 6 years. I know that a lot of the people that beg for money on the streets, whether they are showing you where to park, whether they are opening out their hat for you to give money in it at the entrance to the supermarket, or whether they're physically sitting on the road begging for money, a lot of those people come from organised crimes. What you see on the street is not necessarily the person who will get the money at the end of the day. It tends to feed back, and there are usually people living in big houses in different parts of the world that tend to benefit from the coins that you've given these people on the streets. And this is a fact. This is not some kind of made up story. It's true. I know this from my days in the police. And so for this, I'm quite cynical when I see these. And I think this is why I can't get my head around like why people would do this, because when you do it, you allow it to continue, because if everybody stopped giving money, these people would stop asking. It's as simple as that. For every time that somebody stands on the corner waiting for you to pay them because they've shown you where to park, there is probably 3 or 4 people beforehand who have already given them money, so that's why they have the motivation to continue. So this is something I can't wrap my head around, maybe through my own personal experiences in the police perhaps, or coming from London and being quite cold in that sense. But yeah, I don't agree with this. I think, we all work really, really hard, and I think we need to consider that sometimes when we're faced with those situations. Okay, another thing that I can't really understand is how some Italian people are reluctant to try the cuisine of other countries. Now, as I said at the beginning of this video, this isn't for everyone, but I do know that some people, when they travel to other countries, they tend to find Italian restaurants to eat in rather than sampling the cuisine from that country. Now, don't get me wrong, I get it. The Italian cuisine is literally the best cuisine I think I've ever tasted. So I can understand why there is this kind of sense of pride and kind of pickiness as to what people eat. Because if you've grown up eating this kind of food, everything else just tastes a little bit inferior. But there is something really, really special about trying different cuisines. Even if you don't like them at the end of the day, at least try and sample them. The amount of Italian people that I've spoken to, and I'll be like, oh, have you tried Chinese? Or have you tried, Thai food? Or have you tried Indian? And they're like, no. Or I'll ask them, what did you eat when you went on holiday? I bought something from the supermarket, or I went and found a pizzeria. Like, it's literally this. And I can't really understand that, because I think, you learn through your experiences. You learn from having an open mind. And yes, Italian food is absolutely fantastic. And no, I'll probably never get to sample every dish that this incredible country produces in my lifetime. But I'm also willing to try other cuisines and to keep my horizons open and broad. And so this is why I can't really understand why people are so reluctant to at least sample other food before immediately writing it off. And the fifth thing that blows my mind is how some Italian people will tolerate situations and behaviour that is just not right. Now, as I said at the beginning of this video, this isn't for everyone, but there is a lot of this kind of mindset here in South Italy. And I think a lot of it is due to the economic situation. There is poverty here in South Italy. It's something that is a bit of a stereotype, but it is also something that is true. And so people here do what they can to put food on the table, to put it bluntly. And so if that means that they have to work excess hours, or they have to work 7 days a week, or they have to take so-called black money, which means untaxed money, rather than having the security of a contract, people do it. And the problem is, employers know that they can get away with it. And so there's this kind of uniform mentality in some parts of South Italy where people just take advantage of those kinds of situations. And it makes me sad, first and foremost, because I think if people didn't tolerate this kind of behaviour wouldn't exist. But then it's a vicious circle, because if there were better economic prospects here, people wouldn't be in the desperate situation to kind of allow themselves to be treated in that way. So that's a difficult one to break, I think. But I just don't agree with it. It's about having personal respect and boundaries. And I'm quite strong. I know I'm quite strong. And I'm sure people think I'm like, oh, mamma mia, pesante. But I don't care, because at the end of the day, I value myself. I value the work that I do. And I'm always professional in every single aspect of my life. But I have my own boundaries for sure. Because if you don't have boundaries and you allow people to walk all over you, there's no coming back from that. Because once those boundaries are crossed, it's very difficult to rebuild the fences. And so I think this is why I can't wrap my head around this, because I come from a different culture and a different country where, people can get taken advantage of in the UK. Absolutely, yes. But I do feel that, I don't know, it's not as much as it is here in South Italy. Like here in South Italy, it feels like that is amplified, and it's a shame. And I can't understand this, because I think, silence is agreeing with the situation, even if you don't mentally. And, yes, there's reasons why you might have to live your life in that way, but at the end of the day, how do you feel when you go to bed at night? This is what I always think. If you are allowing yourself to be treated in a particular way, that is never going to make you feel good. You're going to feel resentment. You're going to be bitter, and you're just going to keep this toxic cycle going concerning the working world here in South Italy, because I do believe that it can be quite toxic here. And, there can be people who behave in ways that wouldn't be tolerated in other parts of the world. So it's an interesting one. It's very multifaceted, this last aspect, because I know that there is a lot that goes into the conditions that people have to endure here. And I know that I sit here in a very privileged position, coming from London, having a job, but please don't get it twisted. Like, yes, I've been working here for 6 years, but trust me, teachers here are not respected or valued in the way that they should be. So, if you have experience as a teacher, I'm sure you will understand exactly what I mean. So please understand that, yes, I have a sense of privilege sitting here, but it doesn't mean that I've not experienced things that have been totally wrong in the course of the 6 years that I've been here, which is why I can be quite honest and frank with you on this channel about how the mentality here when it comes to work is so radically different to what you're probably going to be used to. So it's this. And I think, part of living in other countries is accepting, as I always say, accepting that there will be things that you can learn from that country, but also accepting that there are going to be things that you're probably never going to get used to, and that is totally okay. You don't have to completely lose yourself and become somebody that you don't recognize anymore just because you live in another country. But it is about finding that balance, and it's about being okay with the fact that you don't necessarily agree with everything, because we're all different. We don't have to be carbon copies of one another. But the important thing is that you can accept and respect where you are. And I sit on this channel and I'm always very honest with you about what real expat life is like here in South Italy, not to slate it off, not to deter you from moving here, but to educate you. Because essentially when you're educated, you are more prepared for what is to come. And if you want to know a bit more about, what it's like in South Italy and how happy it really makes me, watch this video here. I'll see you in the next video.